Hello. Did you know that the spending on AI is likely to reach $433 billion in 2022? That is about a 20% increase. Sounds great. Go and get on the train and make your money. But that amount of investment money is the sign of a race. Who can get there first and dominate a market segment is bound to create a lot of pressure. Who knows what innovations we will see? But perhaps there will also be some corner cutting. Perhaps companies and dev teams will be a little less rigorous. But if others get there first and dominate a market, for example Amazon and e-commerce, what chance for success will you have? Great question, eh? And can you see the motivation factors to move first? In this video, I want to talk to you about the dangers of baking in bias. By that I mean building a project with an ethical weakness and then moving on to spread the defect. In your rush to AI, you would most likely reuse and build upon what you had created before. That makes sense, right? Like in academia, you would walk on the shoulders of giants, reuse ideas and components that you had worked on previously. Your investors would undoubtedly want you to be as efficient as possible, and they would not want you to reinvent the wheel. Let's get the oven ready for some bias baking, if you are sitting comfortably. Before moving on to the content, I just wanted to let you know that we are passionate about AI, ethics, data, futurism, education, and how tech can impact society. We are creating more of these videos. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's begin with something straightforward. By the way, I wish to issue a quick disclaimer. This video is not meant to be religious, nor is it out to denigrate anyone. Instead, I want to show you how we can quickly get into a position of bias. If I perform an image search for Jesus, this is what happens. The results page shows me how Jesus was perceived through time. I see paintings and iconography from history. We see how people thought about Jesus. They imagine him as white. Even though I have not asked a specific question, what colour was Jesus, I am shown many pictures that might lead me to think Jesus was white, or simply confirm my own bias. Can you see that? A historical view of Jesus is shown to us. That is what we mean by baked in. Worse, this search result could be projected into the future. In 5, 10 or 20 years, I may still get the same effect. And if so, how might people be influenced? I ran the same search on DuckDuckGo out of curiosity. I got a different result. Does this mean I now have an alternative truth? I'm not about to go down that rabbit hole and compare search engines. Let's stay on track. If you consider that some academics believe Jesus' family came from northern Iraq, it is unlikely that he was white. A different Google search would support them. Take another look at Google with a changed search query. There we have it. Suppose we consider each of the images found by the search engines as data, then these pictures or data can add up to influence a particular worldview, and in the process we can be influenced in our thinking. If we relate this back to our development work, it means we use the conclusions from a previous phase to build on the next, and so on. Just think about it. In the case of the Jesus images, we can't go back and tell the painters they got it wrong. We can't even alter their pictures now. That would be weird, as we would be engaging in some kind of cultural censorship. So in short, we have to wake up to these issues. Let us now move on to a second example of why baking in AI systems is so compelling. It is time for chatbots, or let's use them as an example to explore this topic further. Let us now look at another issue related to bias, and let's use an example of chatbots. Chatbots and conversational AI are a great example of machine learning and AI that are incredibly visible. They are practical, they're accessible, and many organizations, large and small, are using them or in the process of developing systems that will be using these. A lot of effort is required to create chatbot systems. The development process and the testing require a lot of human input before the results are worth it. So there's pressure to recoup the investments. These chatbot systems are really interesting. Effectively, what you're doing is you're creating an engine. And the engine has several components. It has a natural language processing element to it. We have intents. So effectively what we're trying to do is recognize what the person is saying or typing and then to carry out an action. And that could be book a flight, or it could be buy this product. So once we've used natural language processing, worked out what the user wants through the intents, we then have to fulfill. So we create a complete system where an AI bot, for a better word, is talking to a customer, is understanding what that customer requires, and then is kicking off the systems that will supply that customer. That takes a lot of effort. So there is a commercial imperative to try and gain value from all of this effort, from all of this development work. So we try and put out a second chatbot, or at least reuse as many elements as possible. And if we're able to do that, what's stopping us from rolling out even more versions? So what we're trying to do here is explain the notion that once we put a lot of effort into creating these AI systems, we will actually go forward and replicate and reuse them. In simple terms, we are baking in the knowledge, the learning. We are creating a new motor. That motor is then used again and again. So here's the warning. We are baking in potentially the biases, the ways that these algorithms can fail, and then we're replicating them again and again and again. So let's take you straight back to that Google slide with Jesus. If we create a system that produces such results as Jesus, we've then baked it in to future systems. We are taking and distributing these errors further and further, wider and wider. So keeping on the motor theme, as per our chatbots, we expect our robots of the future to have been trained. We expect them to have received an education. Now, what if we could open source some of these ideas? What if we could train a bot, a model, an AI, and then reuse it? Open source has been fundamental to the development and the widespread use of IT. So wouldn't it be a great idea if we could do the same for some of our AI systems and processes, so that other people could reuse, they could build upon our work, and they could extend the reach of these products? Well, it's already happening. And you'd expect to find something on GitHub where we can find trained models. In fact, we can find the idea of Linux in the version of Onyx. So there's a huge potential for the wider society. If we look back at Linux and just how transformational it was to the IT environment, just think how far taking trained AI models could be to the future of IT, in fact humanity. But, as we've been discussing previously, there are issues and consequences. We talked about the money going into AI, and if we consider the multiplier effect open source could bring to the table, we can surely expect some incredible progress. That's your high. Now for your low. Let us consider a Google story that ties language processing to our chatbot story. Let's go back to Google again. So let's just look at what could happen if we were to take a really scaled up version of an AI model. Building these AI systems is not easy. Quite often we need a lot of data. Getting that data is really hard. We have to train these systems, we have to test them, we have to make sure they're accurate, and it can be a lot of work. And what we'll see here is that there can be some huge downsides. In the case of this project, if we just look at some of the language implications, we could bake in abusive language, hate speech, aggression, stereotypes, dehumanizing language. The danger is that we create these systems by vacuuming up how humans behave, and I've used that word before, baking them into a system that we might reuse again and again. And here we'll see our first ethicist in our story of data protection and privacy. So yes to motors, but we need to be careful. What can we learn and take away from the discussions? 1. AI development is only going to rocket upwards. The investment technology and the open source ideas all point in one direction. 2. We have already seen how baking in occurs. If we consider our first takeaway, we will have more of it. If you create more systems, you increase the opportunity for bias to exist and for it to be passed on, almost in the same way that DNA is transmitted through generations. 3. There's a clear need to do something. Racist chatbots are easy to spot and shut down. But what about the less apparent systems? For example, what could happen in criminal justice or in the world of medical diagnosis? If we wish to nip bias problems in the bud, the answer must be provided by working more ethically. But of course, we need to prevent biases in the first place. How we might use ethics to solve the problems discussed is a topic for a future video. I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and share. Also, if you wish to be informed of our next videos, please subscribe, and YouTube will update your feed with our work. Thank you.